Is the Navajo Arch on your list of things to see in Arches National Park? We're gonna talk about how you hike to it. Hey there, I'm Alex from Alex on the Map, and the Navajo Arch was actually one of my favorite arches that we saw while we were in the Devil's Garden area of Arches. What I love about it is it's just kind of a quieter hike, and because it's located a little farther from all the main arches, you have a little bit of peace and quiet in this very popular area. However, there are two ways to get there, and it can be a little bit confusing, so we're gonna talk about it in this video on how you can get there no problem and enjoy. Quick tip before you get started: anytime you plan on hiking in Arches, you're going to want to make sure to check for flash flooding before you go. This is especially true when hiking in Devil's Garden. Some quick stats before we get started talking about how you actually hike this hike. It's about 2.9 miles if you are taking the regular route, and I would say this is a moderate hike. You have an elevation gain of about 492 feet, and I would expect about an hour and a half if you are taking the traditional route, and a little bit longer if you are taking the primitive route, which we'll talk about a little later. Alright, let's get into how you're going to hike this hike. This hike starts at the Devil's Garden parking lot on the most northern end of Arches. While you can solely use this trail just to get to Navajo Arch if you want, you're going to pass by a bunch of different arches along the way that I would recommend you definitely make sure to stop at. Some of these include Tunnel Arch, Pine Tree Arch, and the famous Landscape Arch. This does mean that you'll probably spend a little bit more time on the trail than you normally would if you're planning on stopping and taking pictures and enjoying. It's pretty easy until you get to Landscape Arch, and then you'll start to notice more elevation gain as you go along. This is nothing too crazy. Again, this is only 492 feet of elevation all the way around, but it does feel a little bit more strenuous than the first part of the hike you might have noticed. There's also a little bit of scrambling during this time, so you're going to want to make sure to wear some solid footwear while doing this. It also could be a little bit more stressful if you are dealing with a bunch of crowds also, depending on the time of year you are visiting. You're going to want to keep a lookout for the Navajo Arch Spur Trail, and that's the indication that you're going to turn off and head to Navajo Arch. This hike doesn't require a ton of backcountry navigation, but it doesn't hurt to have an app that will help you decide where to go. Personally, all trails should do you just fine on this hike because it's nothing too crazy. We'll talk a little bit about the primitive trail in just a bit, but know you will also want to make sure that you have this map downloaded for that as well. You'll know you've reached Navajo Arch when you come to the arch and you see a pine tree growing in the middle of it. Personally, I just found this spot so peaceful, and Daniel and I really enjoyed this spot because it was so quiet and away from the crowds. Another thing you might want to do at this point once you are done with your time at Navajo Arch is continue on the primitive trail. The primitive trail is an unmaintained park trail where you are kind of doing a choose your own adventure type thing, and to be honest, we totally got lost on it, so make sure to have your map downloaded if you decide to take this on. It's also a lot more difficult, a lot more elevation gain, and you're going to need a lot more food and water. If this sounds too intimidating, instead you can come back just the way you came when you are headed to Navajo Arch in the first place. Are you struggling on planning your national park trip? Let's face it, between accommodations, figuring out the reservation system, and a lot more, it's just overwhelming planning your national park trip sometimes. This can cost you a lot of time and money just figuring out your itinerary. If you're looking for some help planning your trip, I offer a custom national park itinerary service that walks you through day by day what you need to know before you go. This itinerary will save you a lot of time and money and allows you to get to the park and actually enjoy your trip instead of worrying about all the details. I plan hundreds of national park trips for clients, which has helped them enjoy their whole experience a lot more. So what does one of these custom itineraries include? You can expect reservation information if needed, suggestions on where to stay, what to eat, and what to do, and tips and recommendations for your specific park. You'll love the itinerary I plan for you, or you get your money back. Here's some testimonials from some of my clients. Alex was very responsive to my request for assistance in planning our upcoming trip to Glacier National Park. We were unfamiliar with the park, and it was helpful to get specific recommendations of where to stay, eat, and what to do while we're out there to make the most of our vacation from Barbara. Alex was more than prompt in responding to my request for an itinerary. Her selections fit perfectly with the criteria I requested. She's been great about following up and making sure that our needs are met. From Samantha. If you're interested in this, I offer a 15-minute consultation call for free where you can tell me about your concerns for your national park trip, and I can give you more information on how I can help you. You can find that out in the description below and book your call there. Here are some tips I found helpful for hiking to Navajo Arch. Number 1 is bring plenty of water. Anytime you are hiking in Arches, you're going to want to bring more water than you might normally on a different type of hike. Even for a relatively short hike like the one to Navajo Arch, I would recommend at least a liter of water. I would also recommend hiking in the morning to avoid those hot temperatures in the afternoon. Not only will the trails be less busy, especially in the very popular area of Devil's Garden, but Arches has also required a reservation system for the past few years, which starts at 7 o'clock. So this gives you a chance to just beat out the reservations if you are in the park before 7 and on the trail. And finally, if you are planning on taking on the primitive trail, I definitely recommend you go into it feeling prepared. Again, you're just going to require more food and water, and you're going to want to make sure you have a navigational system to know where to go. Okay, here are some commonly asked questions I get about hiking to Navajo Arch. Where is Navajo Arch located? Navajo Arch is located in Devil's Garden in the northernmost part of Arches National Park. Is the Navajo Arch Trail good for kids? I would definitely say that this is a good hike for kids. Not only is it not super difficult, but it's just a really nice way to get to see a bunch of different things. For kids over the age of 6, they should have no problem, even with some minor scrambling and slick rock. It does help to have a little bit of hiking experience. If this is their first time hiking, they might feel a little overwhelmed by this. When is the best time to hike to Navajo Arch? I definitely recommend hiking this hike in the morning, not only to beat the crowds, but also to beat the heat, depending on what time of year you're visiting. Personally, I love visiting Arches in the fall because of those cooler temps, but spring is equally nice as well. Of course, summer, you're definitely going to want to make sure to hit this in the morning or in the evening in order to make sure you're not super hot. What should I know about hiking the primitive trail in Devil's Garden? The primitive trail is exactly what it says. It is primitive. It takes you from It's another way to get to Navajo Arch through Devil's Garden, and it does require a lot more scrambling, some more navigation, and just more preparedness in general. That being said, if you're ready for an adventure, I would definitely recommend doing it, just with those caveats in mind. I hope this has helped you learn a little bit more about Navajo Arch in Arches National Park. I have a whole blog post about this topic that you're going to want to check out in the description below for more information. And before you head out, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so you get more information on national parks for your trip.